How's it going? My name's Clayton Cook. I'm going to be going over using Plotly with the Django, the Python web framework. And so I have a little blog post right up for that, but I'm going to go through creating that in this video. And by the end, what we'll get is something that looks like this. We're going to go through using Plotly in the front end, so the plotly.js library, which created this Kentucky counties histogram and Kentucky County's population change for 2024 histogram. And then we're also going to look at creating plots into Django with the plotly.py in the backend, and just to see how it's different and to give you options on it, which one you want to use. So let's get into coding it up. So I have Visual Studio open, and I have my project in my folder plotly_dj for Django. So I'm going to clear this. I've already activated my virtual environment. So let's activate for scripts. Activate. I've already done that. So I've already also installed the needed packages, which is Django and Plotly. But to do that, you would do pip install Django and Plotly. So those are installed. And so now I'm going to create a new Django project. And so that's you use Django-admin, start project, and core. So it created that, and I like to rename this folder. There we go. Rename this folder Django project. Okay. So now I have core here, and so the next step is to create an app. So I'm going to cd into my Django project, and then I'm going to py manage start app, and I'm going to call this app base. So I have a core that has information about my settings, and then I have a base app. That's kind of how I set that up. And so now I have a base app, and I need to add that base app to my core settings. So I go here, installed apps, and do core. Okie doke. Next step is I'm going to set up some models to house my data. And so my models are going to be some information about population for Kentucky counties, just so we have some data to look at. So let me find my info here. Okay, so we're going to go in here, and my model I'm going to have in my base app in models, and my model is going to have some information here. So let's see here. So I created a model called population, has some state data, what county this particular record is, population for 2020, population for 2024, area in miles, density, and growth since 2020, so population increase. So now that I have my model, I'm going to define my admin model for that model. And so we can do that in the admin file. So I'm going to open up my admin file here, add my model for population, and I need to import that. And I don't have to have this part, I can just have base models. So now I have an admin interface to be able to look at that data. Now I'm going to apply migrations. So py manage make migrations. Let's see. So save that, and my core. Oh, I named that wrong. That's why I wasn't picking up those migrations. So try this again. By pi manage, make migrations. So now I picked it up, create model population. So now I'm going to apply those migrations. Pi manage, migrate, and it'll create a SQLite file, and that will be here, SQLite 3. So now we have our database set up. And I'm going to create a super user so I can log in to the admin interface. I'm going to say admin, no email address, admin for my password, and I'm fine with that. Awesome. So now I can run my server for the first time. Actually, before we do that, I'm going to import some data that I've already created. And this is modeled in the way that I've set up my models. So I'm going to put this information in a new folder, and it's going to be called fixtures. And then that fixtures will have some JSON data that I've created, and it'll be called data. So this is what it looks like. Has information about my model, primary key, and then the information in those fields. So now I can import that. I'll get it figured out my error. This is not the Django admin command. You use the manage. So load data, and then my data is called data.json, but I can just use data. Here we go. So it pulled in 120 objects for the 120 counties that's in Kentucky. So I have all my data in there. And so now I'm going to look at it inside the admin with the run server command. I'm going to look at it here. And we can see we can open it up. And then if I go to the admin, we can look in population and see we have some county information in here. And county, population, we have our data pulled in. So now our next step we'll be getting into is building the back end to create the charts and the routing. So now we're going to start building the views. And so I'm going to stop the server and clear this out. And so now the next step, I'm going to look in my base and then look at my views. And so what my views here, see base, actually I need to do my URL routes first. So inside of base, I'm going to make a new file called urls.py. And then with this, I'm going to pull in my path, and then the name of my template is going to be index. And so now I need to open up core and URLs and import those URL routes from the base app. And you can do that with path, and then that's the default path, and we want to include base.urls, and then I need to import the include, and I can save that. So now I have my URL routes, and it'll just be the base route, and then I can So I have both of those set up. Next step is creating my view. And so I'm going to create my view in my base app. So I'm going to say base and then views. And then my first view is going to be just the index view request return render index.html. So that's kind of the default here. And my next step is to do base. I'm going to create that file now. And that file, I'm going to put it underneath of templates and base. So inside of base, I'm going to make a new folder called templates. And then a new folder under that called base. And that's where I'm going to put my index.html file. New file, index.html. So I already have my index file set up, so I'm going to copy that over. Let me talk through that a little bit. For this particular project, I'm using Vanilla.js for my CSS styling. So I need to pull that in. And that'll be, I need to create a new folder to put that. That's static. And then a new folder under that called base. I'm going to plop in my vanilla CSS file. Okay. And if you look through here, I've installed the Plotly JavaScript CDN. Look through here as well. We've loaded up static, so we have access to static files. And then I've included some information about, we're going to plot the plots for the front end here and plot the plots for from the back end here. So this plot history 2024 is going to get passed from the view to the template here, and it'll show a graph there. And this plot histogram change 2024 will be passed from the view as well from the back end. And that's where that plot's going to be. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use a partial template, index county underscore pop, that we're going to put underneath of base, new folder, partials, and then a new one, index county pop.html. This doesn't have anything in it yet, but it will. And that's where that's going to pull that in from. And we also need to create the variable county pop JSON to pass into this template from the view. So let's go ahead and create the data from the view that's going to get passed to the template. So this is going to be getting the population data. So I need to import that model. This one's going to have objects. And then what we're going to use then is we're going to also collect Python objects and then do values so that we get a list, and then we'll convert this list to JSON in the front end here in a minute. So I'll save that. On the back end, what's going to create the histogram plots is this function here and this function here. There's going to be two histogram plots. Those are going to be in a graphs file. So I'll go ahead and create that. So new file, graphs.py. And I'll pull in the code for it. So what's in this is I pull in a lot of Plotly information at the top, and Plotly has an offline mode where it basically passes back a div with the information needed to display that graph in an interactive way to the front end. And so that's the general idea for this one. So we're going to pass in our population model. It's going to convert that for population 2024 for the X data. And then it's create this histogram. And then this is the Plotly HTML. And we have our regular Plotly data, and our output type is div, and we include Plotly.js as false because we use the script already. We imported it in the HTML template. We use the same process for the histogram plot population change. Same type of process, except we only select the growth since 2020 column from the population data. Okay, so now I have both of those, and I need to pull those in. I'll save that. And so now I have my data pulled in from the back end, and also have created my graphs using Plotly on the server side. And so now I'm going to pass this information to my template. So I'm going to pass county pop, which is the Python objects, to the template. I'm going to pass in just the values, county pop JSON. Then I'm going to pass in the created divs that have graph information in it for both the population histogram and the population histogram change. So I'm going to save those. Okey-doke. So I have that. And what will happen is inside the view, it's going to take that county pop, create using Plotly. It's going to create that histogram, and then it's going to pass that to the template, and then the template, to be able to render that, it's going to be here, and you need to have auto escape off because it's passing back HTML div. So you need to pass it to the template using that auto escape off parameter. So if we save that and we run our server, I got a problem with that. I don't need those. There we go. So now I'm going to look at my graphs. So what I have working so far is the backend graphs. And you can see here they're interactive, and those are the ones that were created in that graphs.py file. You can see those here. And also in this template, I just looped over the population data to be able to display it. Just kind of get an idea of what's in there. So Jefferson County 2020 pop. So you have the graphs here. And so now we're going to work on setting up the front end JavaScript way of using Plotly with Plotly.js. So now let's go back into our template. And if you remember, we used inside the index HTML, we used an include as a partial template. And so right now that's blank. So now we're going to put in the needed HTML and JavaScript to generate those plotly plots. So let me pull in my code here, and we can talk through it. So I have a div with an ID of plot 001, so that's my first plot. And then I have another one that's div plot 002. The magic for passing information from the Django backend to the front end template and passing it in Java and passing information into your JavaScript is you use this JSON script um, tag. So what this does is it takes that list of values that we passed in from the view, county pop JSON, and then it converts it into a JSON script. It converts it into JSON. And then what we do is we grab that created JSON using JSON.parse, and it puts an ID of county pop JSON onto that JSON data that it renders. And so that's how you take data from the backend that's passed from the view to the template, and then it consumes this data inside this JavaScript. And so that's how we get the data. And then for the Plotly side, we have imported the needed JavaScript for Plotly inside the index HTML. And so now we can use those objects, which gets down here, Plotly new plot. So we have some canvas information, which is this one. So that's telling you the div here. It's grabbing that div. And then trace has information about the data and what kind of plot you want. So we're doing histogram. Opacity of it is 0.7, and it's using bin sizes of 10,000. And then we have information about the plot itself, the layout, and the title, and some information. So you can pass those in with Plotly new. And then that it goes and sticks in the required information into this div up here. And we do this twice, one for both histograms. One that uses the county population for 2020, and then one that uses the change from 2020 to 2024, and then I convert that into a percentage. So let's save that, and we'll go and look at how it generated it on the front end. So we have here, and when we refresh this, it should populate the front end because we've updated that. And there we go, populated that. And we'll look at the JSON data that it created real quick as well. Let's see, is it this one? Yeah. So if we look at our source inside of our body, inside of our document main, our section, front end graphs. So here we go. Script ID county pop JSON. So that's what was generated from this right here. And if we look at that, which is here, you can see that this is JSON data and has information about our counties that was passed in from the back end. And so, yep, and so we have a script here, and you see this JSON parse get element by ID county pop JSON, and so we're grabbing the information in here and converting that into the data constant. So that's the process. So we went through creating Plotly graphs in Django using both just creating the plots on the back end with plotly.py files, the Plotly py package, and that's these two histograms here. And then we also created the same histograms with the plotly.js library by passing the data from the back end to the front end using this nice little JSON script here in the templates. So hopefully that's helpful. And at the end, we get these nice, lovely, interactive plots. So thanks so much for reading and staying with me here. So.